Awesome. Thank you so much. So I know I have the dreaded pre-lunch slot, so I'm going to try to go quick, try not to be a holdup for you at all. And hit the highlights for us and give you guys time for questions. So a little bit about me. I'm actually the cyber program manager in the Virginia Fusion Center. Fusion Center in Virginia is a joint operation between the state police and the Department of Emergency Management. We're in all threats. Oh, sorry, all threats, all crimes, all hazards response and intelligence center. I oversee a cyber intel team and a cyber response team that provides statewide support to all public bodies in Virginia, as well as all private sector critical infrastructure. I won't go too much into my background, but I do want to highlight that a lot of the information that I can speak to and where some of these ideas or drive has come from is heavily from Virginia Code 2.25514, which is actually code that was passed back in 2022, requires all public bodies to actually notify us in the event of a cyber attack. So we get a huge clearinghouse of information in the Fusion Center that lets us see some really interesting trends and patterns, but also drive some interesting projects and initiatives to help kind of reduce risk at no cost to our partners in Virginia. So a little bit of my hot take in cybersecurity for many years has been that cybersecurity in general is great. We need it. Prevention is great. We need it, but prevention is no longer enough. Preventing cyber attacks is no longer sufficient for kind of the modern threat landscape that we work in. And what I firmly believe is that we need to move closer to a model where we are truly governing for failure. We are building models, assuming failure at its core and actually starting from there, not assuming that that is the endpoint or that is the disaster we're avoiding, but that is where the crisis actually begins. So a lot of times I talk to our state and local partners, our private sector partners, and I really try to shift that mindset from we still have to invest in left of boom, but we want to learn to live to the right of it effectively. I won't read off too many stats to you because you guys probably know more than I do across a variety of sectors and a variety of areas. What I do want to highlight is that getting cybersecurity perfect is really about doing things way beyond cybersecurity, we feel in Virginia. And that's just because prevention, again, is no longer enough. And we need to move towards this model of preparing for the worst. And the reason we do that is because the stats tell us that a lot of what we've been doing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years just doesn't work. It hasn't really moved the needle. The number of attacks in Virginia has not gone down. The number of victims has not gone down. The number of financial losses from cybercrime have not gone down despite tons of investment, despite tons of new technology. It's still kind of getting worse year after year. So we're trying to reframe our approach, but we know, looking at some stats, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, run by FBI, had over 3,600 ransomware reports just to them last year, including 63 new variants of ransomware that they received. The EPA reports that there are over 145,000 water utilities technically in the country, but 95% of them fall into the bucket of small. They are considered small systems by EPA standards, which means a lot of things that don't consider the small utility are missing 95% of stakeholders potentially. And we love to pick on the Change Healthcare incident just because, in talking to our healthcare partners in Virginia, it was pretty deeply impactful for them. Change Healthcare touches about 1 in 3 patient records across all of Virginia. So 1 in 3 records are being touched by that single system alone for all of our constituents. But in a report conducted by the American Hospital Association, they found that 74% of hospitals reported a direct impact from the Change Healthcare incident. As well, 60% of them said it took anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months to get back to steady state after that incident occurred. So a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of effort. On top of all of this, we're dealing with this constant landscape of evolving and shifting threat actors, developing new techniques, adopting AI. You guys know it, we live it, we love it, right? On top of that, the ever expanding attack surface, new technologies, new implementations, new interconnections. So all of this creates this overwhelming risk landscape that we have found many of our state and local partners and many of our critical infrastructure entities, including our smaller or rural municipal entities, simply can't keep up with. They simply don't have the resources to keep up with this. So I like to say that effectively, if anyone who has seen Dr. Strangelove, who remembers this movie, I saw it when I was very young and I kind of forgot about it until I put together this presentation and was looking for mostly a memorable, catchy title. But I like to argue essentially every community essentially has a doomsday machine in it. But the doomsday machine is not the actor. It's not the vulnerability. It's not necessarily the nation state actor lying in wait. It's actually the infrastructure itself. It is the massive, unknown, undocumented, unmeasured interconnect of all these crazy things spanning hospitals to power to water to schools that is actually the doomsday machine. That interconnect, that reliance is where the risk, where the actual doomsday machine sits. And so we have seen across Virginia multiple incidents that have occurred where things that we did not even realize were interconnected go down and systemic failures occur. I live in Richmond, Virginia, so a couple hours away from here. Richmond, Virginia had a major water outage, a 7-day water outage, not that long ago, within the last year. It was not caused by a cyber attack, thankfully. It was caused by weather-related stuff. But a single pumping station in the city, turns out, is results for direct water supply to 7 different hospital systems in the greater Richmond area. That was a dependency that not a single person recognized, not the water operator, not our emergency managers, not our public safety leaders, not our governor's office. Nobody knew this one pump station single-handedly supported 7 distinct hospital systems, including one of our most top-tier critical trauma centers in the state at MCV. So these hidden dependencies are everywhere. Lots of states are working to try to map it out. If you were in one of the panels earlier this morning, Maryland is doing a lot of work to try to figure this out. Virginia's been talking about it for years. But even with all the work that's been done, I still don't think anyone really has the full picture of everything. On top of this, we see tons of smaller rural operators who are increasingly being left behind in a lot of this work. They have thin staffing. I have talked to IT teams that are 1.5 people running entire water treatment facilities. That is IT, that's OT, that's cyber, that's procurement, that's everything. All technology goes through 1.5 people. We have talked to local governments who have a 1-person IT shop. That guy, I'm not going to name names, of one rural locality in Virginia, the IT leader is also the comptroller and the county dog catcher. It's truly the shared hats of resources that they have to pull sometimes. So there is not a lot of bench depth. There is not a lot of opportunities to bring in more bodies, more hands when something goes wrong in a lot of our smaller rural entities. On top of that, we've seen this huge cultural shift where things like planning, policy, exercise development increasingly being treated by more of a compliance checkbox, right? I got to do it. I got to document it. I got to get it. I got to promulgate it. I got to get it out the door. And then I'm done. I'm going to revisit it once a year and I'm set for life. And what we find is that really the value in that work and policy and planning and exercise, it's the journey. It's the conversations you go through, developing it, writing it, fighting with people over pizza about it. Like that is where the meat comes out of that work. The artifact that comes at the end is great, but that is not where the true value lies. But we see a lot of our operators skipping that consideration. And finally, there exists in cybersecurity, and this is one of the things that drives me, I think, the most crazy in this field in general, is that this whole concept of this David versus Goliath approach in cybersecurity, where small, rural, municipal entities, whether they're public health systems, water treatment, K through 12 schools, are literally being told you have to defend yourself. You have to go up against all variety of actors, including groups like the Chinese PLA. This is a particular unit out of the PLA. They operate in a 12-story building in Shanghai. They have a robust recruitment program that pulls from multiple prestigious universities all over the country. They have a robust multi-year training program that covers all forms of IT, OT, cybersecurity, English language proficiency, you name it, right? They are building massive capabilities, massive teams, massive infrastructure. This group has their own dedicated internet service provider that supports their operational cyber activities and cyber attacks against foreign nations. Yet this 4-person Memorial Health System in Mississippi has to consider this a common adversary that they must go toe to toe against, right? I'm not saying that they shouldn't have to do it, or they don't have to do it, but I would argue it's truly an unfair matchup, right? And this is just one of dozens of hundreds of malicious actors routinely targeting these infrastructure areas. So the other pain point we run into, I'm going to throw myself under the bus a little bit here, is that no one really has the full picture. No one sees everything. No one has all the data. No one has all the attack, all the vulnerability. Everything is sort of disparate, is spread out. So government, we think we can protect everything sometimes, and I say that as someone who works in government and kind of tries to protect everything, but we can't. We don't have the resources, we don't have the technology, we sometimes don't even have the expertise to cover all these bases. So instead, we see the private sector and free market step in, and they do a great job. But then we get these like competing models, competing frameworks, competing priorities. We also see more pay to play models come into play or into effect, which starts to grow that disparity between the haves and the haves not in the space. And then to address those gaps, we see these grassroots cybersecurity movements. We see these volunteer efforts, and these are great. I love them. I support several of them. I volunteer for several of them, but they become kind of whack-a-mole cybersecurity approaches where they're tackling small pieces here and there. And then sometimes they just run out of steam. We've seen a few volunteer efforts that started strong in Virginia, for example, but ran out of volunteers, ran out of funding, ran out of interest. And so some of these efforts start up, but they don't make it all the way through. They're waves that kind of crash or crest eventually. So nobody really has the full picture. We are all trying to do this effectively with one arm tied behind our backs. Everyone uses this meme when we talk about frameworks. I'm so glad to see in the previous presentation. Again, I am not here like everyone else to offer yet another framework, another standard, but it was tempting. I have done it in the past. But instead, what I really want to talk about is like, how can we shift the narrative? Knowing the threat landscape that we operate in, knowing what we have to do, how can we figure out how to kind of flip the switch a little bit? And again, focus equally, not ignoring prevention, but focusing equally on right of boom, post-attack considerations. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here. There's a lot of different solutions you can look at. In Virginia, we're really passionate about cyber disruption planning as one of the solutions. I won't say it's the solution. There's other things you can do, but this has been working, we feel, pretty well in our state. And for us, it's really putting that focus on reduction of harm, preservation of critical functions, mission essential functions, critical business processes, whatever you want to call them, and planning for failure. Not focusing solely on prevention of failure, assuming failure will happen, and then writing your plans for when it does. So some basic parts of how we do this. First, we do workshops, we do trainings, we put out resources. I'll show you a link where you can get everything we've done in Virginia. I'm going to make it available to everyone. This is my drop date. But first thing we do is draw a really harsh distinction between incident response and cyber disruption planning. I find a lot of people consider them the same or ancillary to each other. We consider them two distinct trade crafts, two distinct functions of work. So first we have that discussion to drive a distinction between technical incident response, or detecting and removing an adversary from the network, different from planning for failure, governing for failure. Second, it's about walking our partners through identifying their critical business functions or mission essential functions. And then for each of them, mapping the dependencies. So if you identify 7 things that are most critical for a 911 center to do 911 work, for each one, we make them map the dependencies, and then we make them rate those dependencies, both in a priority model and against FEMA's community lifelines model. This forces everyone to think about, if this disruption occurs, if this crashes, if this falls apart, what is the impact to life, health, and safety? Not just the impact to bits and bytes, ones and zeros, digital networks, things like that. Then we strongly encourage people to test it. I'll be very transparent. I hate tabletop exercises. I've been running, planning, participating in tabletop exercises. We probably average about 2 a month that my team supports our plans. And I'm so tired of them because they're the same conversations with the same no action after the fact occurring over and over again. So we are actually moving Virginia towards more of a simulation model where we actually simulate an event, simulate decision making, and then give people a safe space to fail, essentially give them a safe space to potentially make wrong decisions or bad decisions or ineffective decisions, so they can understand the risk they own and then actually drive a plan to fix it. Tabletops are fine. I'm not gonna harp on them too much, but at the end of the day, we just find it's a lot of discussion where simulations move us to like actual measurable actions. And then for all of these, we drive incorporation of consequence-based triggers. So trying to measure for each organization, again, if this fails, what is the consequence? What are the number of stakeholders impacted, the number of citizens, constituents, number, if this pump fails, what are the number of hospitals that are impacted? Surprisingly, no one's asking that question. Now that's a standard question we have to ask in Virginia. And then we work really closely with IT teams to align it to existing IT disaster recovery operations. So we don't come in and try and reinvent the wheel. We try to plug and play this concept into a lot of existing policy and procedure that organizations have. And then above all else, though, we want to make sure people are asking the right questions. And this is where a lot of the training and education that we provide to our partners really kicks in. So the biggest part of it, I think, is asking sort of these core questions of what do we have to keep working? What breaks if it stops working? Who owns it? I would be surprised how many people internally don't realize who owns all of the infrastructure, all the technology that they themselves use or rely on. We have localities in Virginia that can't even remember the name of like their managed security service provider or their third-party cloud vendor sometimes. We also want them to ask who relies on this, who are the customers or stakeholders for each critical function. And then what often gets skipped is who do we contact when and how when there's a problem. This is what we find in almost all of our simulations is that when something does break, the majority of our partners don't know who to call. Not only do they not know who to call externally, a lot of times they don't know who to call internally. They're not sure who the right points of contact are for certain failures of critical systems. It's terrifying. So we really tackle these questions with each organization, but we frame them around failure, right? So we don't frame these questions around how do you answer these questions when there is an incident, when there's an attack, when your SIM is generating 3,000 alerts for malware. No, we frame these questions around failure, which means the starting point for this conversation is your hospital has just had to activate full diversion to 3 other surrounding systems. Now, how do we answer these questions? Your water treatment facility just had 2 pumps go offline. How do we answer these questions? Your K through 12 school system has no IT, 0 technology. How do you answer these questions? Do you still deliver education when you have 0 technology to do it? Surprisingly, yes, schools are really resilient. They're really good at going back to pen and paper. The kids hate it. But our schools in Virginia have gotten really great at just regressing back to pre-technology days. This is also a great opportunity for leadership to come in and really bring together like a variety of partners. We always, when we have these conversations, we make the organizations bring everyone in IT and everyone in cybersecurity, but we really push their arm, twist their arm to bring legal counsel if they have it, finance and HR representatives, their emergency manager, their public safety partners. If it's a county, we make them bring the sheriff or the police department, someone to represent that. If they have an emergency manager, an emergency management function, we make them bring that to the table. So we always make sure there's this cross-disciplinary group having this discussion and helping to answer these questions. And that is where leadership has the strongest influence often. So what we have sort of casually called this in Virginia is the concept of a disruption desk. And it's having like a single point to basically drive this concept of cyber disruption planning. Now, I'm a person that believes, variety is the spice of life. Like, I don't like doing the same thing twice generally. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can implement this concept of a disruption desk, of having like a single point of cyber disruption planning in an organization. We have sometimes recommended people do it as a person, like dedicating a role, not saying go out and get more headcount because we all struggle to do that, right? But having someone whose dedicated role or function or somewhere in their job description includes some of the responsibilities of cyber disruption planning. So your disruption desk as a person. Second option we sometimes recommend is pursuing it as a platform, as a form of technology. So something I did as a proof of concept, leaning into this insane AI era that we're all trapped in, or maybe this AI hell, I should say, is I vibe coded something called the Disruption Desk, and it's a totally browser-based, no storage, all locally stored disruption planning tool that lets you go through all variety of parts of it, from mapping dependencies to identifying contacts to making RASI charts. All these things are important parts of this, all on one virtual platform where you can mess around with it. You can see there's a demo button. You can load it with preloaded demo data just to see what it looks like. It creates visuals of some of the dependencies. So just as a proof of concept to say, hey, there are technology solutions you can pursue, try to do some of this to make it easier. We've seen people implement it using SharePoint and Excel spreadsheets. We've seen people use off-the-shelf emergency management software sometimes. So there's no shortage of opportunities to try to leverage technology. He said to do the fish thing, right? And then the third option we've talked about with some of our partners is basically doing cyber disruption as a playbook. And this is probably where a lot of our local partners tend to favor, because most of them love a good plan, I guess. They love a good binder in case of an emergency. So a lot of them use this playbook option. Really, it's just about taking all these core elements, putting into one single document that walks you through the critical things that need to happen when a major disruptive cyber attack occurs. Without, my wife hates when I do this because I'm known for like building things and then buying random domains and then like dropping them in presentations. So I've done this yet again. So I bought disruptiondesk.com. I couldn't believe it was available. Got it for sale. It was a steal. So you can go to disruptiondesk.com if you don't want to scan that QR code. Don't blame you. And you can get supporting documentation, the same documentation we deliver from the Fusion Center to any partner in Virginia. You all can have it. You can send this to anyone else in the world. My boss doesn't know I did it, so just don't send it to him. But this is free for anyone. So it has, if you want to build this function towards a person, it has a bunch of resources on how to include elements of this into a job description, or what requirements look like, or what those taskings could look like in different job roles. If you want to look at the platform version, I linked to the web app essentially, where you can play with it. You can steal the source code if you want, do whatever you want with it. I didn't put a license on it, so I guess you can, it's not patent pending. I guess you can steal it and monetize it if it's really good, but I don't think it's that good. We provided a full template that we provide for all of our partners if they want to write a cyber disruption plan as a kind of fill in the blank approach. So we have a pre-built annex that you can use that covers all this stuff, highlighted sections of what to fill in. We also provided additional supporting resources for our incident response planning stuff and some of the presentations that we've used to do cyber disruption planning workshops in Virginia. All of that available to you and available to anyone else you think might want it. I also want to spotlight how we put some of this stuff into practice in Virginia. So Virginia, we, again, so many tabletops, but one of the better tabletops we do is a large annual cybersecurity exercise. It's actually led by the Virginia National Guard, but it's called Cyber Fortress. And essentially they bring in all state partners and then a bunch of critical infrastructure partners and then some federal partners. And we do a 2-week-long, large-scale, hands-on cybersecurity exercise. It's actually 2 parts to it. There is a full like firing range they stand up to actually simulate cyber attacks, simulate blue team, red team activities. And then there is a tabletop portion for decision makers to basically yell at each other over policy or lack of policy, usually is what we're doing. We have incorporated tons of the cyber disruption planning elements into our annual exercise there with National Guard, so we can kind of hit everyone's ideas all at once. Through my team, we've launched a series of cyber disruption planning workshops in partnership with our State Department of Emergency Management. So we go to localities, we go to 911 centers, we go to K-12 schools, and do kind of a more slightly longer version of this. Say it's like 4 hours, typically we can do it in 2 though, of like making them actually with worksheets go through and do cyber disruption parts and plans. So they walk away with a draft cyber disruption plan that day. They don't get out the door until they have a draft plan effectively. Third thing we've done, this was a really big initiative over the course of several years. Virginia launched something called the Blue Book Project. This was in partnership with CNA, and I think MITRE helped out a little bit, but it was effectively planning for the worst at a statewide scale. So Blue Book Project was, what if truly, they don't like to say it on the tin, but truly this was, how will Virginia handle a massive PRC disruptive cyber attack that completely demolishes finance, water, healthcare, transportation, and communications? If all 5 sectors were heavily disrupted by a nation state actor, what does Virginia do? So we spent 2.5 years figuring out what we're gonna do, wrote a bunch of plans, wrote a bunch of annexes, did some exercises, did a ton of briefings. I feel a little better, but not 100%. There's still a lot of room to go, but we're better than where we were for sure. But bringing everyone together, that was truly like everyone under the sun came together to sort of practice the concept, at least, of cyber disruption planning at a statewide scale in a true national level emergency. And then finally, we have a new governor just came into Virginia not that long ago. She launched Virginia's Unified Readiness Framework. This is incorporating all of public safety and cybersecurity into a series of meetings and presentations and briefings for every single locality, every single public safety entity, and every single critical infrastructure operator in Virginia. So we just finished a series of 7 regional meetings. Each one had over 150 people, something like that. And then we launched a statewide meeting as well. So incorporating that stuff at the policy level for our executive leadership has also been successful. Suffice to say, though, I've been jumping back and forth my whole career between like cybersecurity and public safety. I've kind of danced the line between both. And they're strange bedfellows for sure. Like sometimes they get along and sometimes they do not. I'm pretty sure this is almost exactly what happened to me at a regional meeting in Fairfax. I was the guy in the headlock, I think. So sometimes there's some tough conversations we go through trying to bridge this gap between cybersecurity and public safety. What I generally believe is that public safety is really good at protecting people, but they just absolutely suck at technology, essentially. On the cybersecurity side, we are great at technology. We're great at planning for tech, but we often don't think about planning for people, planning to protect lives rather than just protecting networks. So ideally, like many things, the best answer lives somewhere in the middle there. But my challenge to you, my homework for you as an adjunct professor, you can't get away without a homework assignment, is when you leave today, think about, imagine as of today, I won't say today, enjoy the conference, spend some local dollars, support the DC economy, right? Monday, when you get back to wherever it is you go, start a countdown, 90 days to doomsday, 90 days to midnight. You have 90 days to see if you can execute and move the needle on cyber disruption planning. That is my ask of you. If not for you, challenge someone else to do the same. And if they need help, disruptiondesk.com. Don't tell my boss, don't tell my wife. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time today.
With AI agents getting more powerful, we probably expect like much higher variance, like types of disruptions of critical infrastructure. And this is like broadening also the definition of critical infrastructure. So like it might be like, toxic gases in some area, like covering a whole town.
Yeah.
Like who's then responsible for that? It might be like some agent coordinating humans who don't even know that they're doing something that's effectively terrorism.
Yeah.
Like with your system, like is it purely at the like attributable like cyber stage where things get involved, or like it might be some dam that's like flooding some valley. It's not supposed to be like, that is obviously like something that should be reported immediately. Should it go into your system before people know that like it's a cyber thing?
It's a great question. And that's something we've built in Virginia where I'm not the clearinghouse for disruptions. A lot of people are like, did this thing go out? Did Verizon go out? Did 911 go out? And I always tell people, I'm not the outage police. Please don't ask me that. But I kind of am the outage police in that we do track outages and disruptions and emergency management situations, because many times what is being reported as a toxic gas leak could be a cyber incident, but none of the responders know, because it's police, it's fire, it's hazmat. Some of them don't know how to use a computer. Many of them don't care about using computers, right? So we have trained a lot of our first responders and public safety professionals to be considerate, but we encourage them, and that's the benefit of straddling cyber and public safety a little bit, is that we get a deep purview into all that stuff, and we can kind of flag those as concerns to ask the question, could this be cyber-enabled disruption rather than just a regular disruption?
There. Okay, I'll talk fast. Good job, not just presenting a framework, but turning it into something that people could use. Really, a lot of people present frameworks, myself included. 2 parts. One, you talked about your 5 questions. There was like, who owns it? Who relies on it? Who do we contact? The who I find challenging because people change in their roles.
Yep.
So how are you thinking about that? And the second is, I'm sure you've come across and thought about EMAC. How did you incorporate that here? Thank you.
Yeah, EMAC's a great question. We're actually working on a project across DC, Maryland, and Virginia right now. We are building EMAC for cyber across the entire region. It is basically done. It's just 100 lawyers that have to figure it out. So we're at the lawyer stage, but it's like 80% there. We've also, I had the luxury in the past of working with FEMA a little bit. One of the biggest hindrances to EMAC, and for those who don't know, that's basically using the emergency management systems to kind of deploy people to other states or other places where an issue occurs, right? Was that they didn't have typing for cyber. So they didn't, normally you can say, I need chainsaws and they need to be this big and they have to be this strong and I need this many of them. Emergency managers had no idea to be like, I need nerds and they need to be this tall and this nerdy and this cool. We worked with FEMA, a bunch of states got together, Virginia, Maryland, California, some North Dakota, maybe a couple other ones. And we gave a lot of advice on typing and we gave some frameworks. I know FEMA took that and has been working on it. With all the administration stuff and the change in administrations, I don't know where it went, but I know that that's an important thing that FEMA has been working on. Remind me the first part of your question, I'm sorry. Oh, the people part, contacts, yeah. So we try to tackle it in a few ways. At first, we were kind of recommending people to have like offline contact lists because we also found people were like, our network is hosed. All of the phone numbers and emails are on the network, and I don't remember anyone's contact info. That was happening a concerning amount of time. But to your point, that creates old lists that quickly become old and out of date. We typically encourage people to focus on titles, not names, right? So you contact the CIO, but don't list them by name. That sort of gives a little bit of longevity to change. The other thing we often have done is try to leverage existing contact lists, particularly if it's something that's like cross industry or cross sector or something that's more broad. So like I don't keep a list of every K through 12 IT director in Virginia, but I have to get in touch with them routinely. The Department of Education does. They are mandated to have a single point of contact for everyone. So when I need to get something in front of all schools, I go to the K-12 person and they blast it out. I have a person for schools, for water, for hospitals. I have like a guy or a girl for all those like areas where I need specific contacts. And so we try to focus on finding someone else who can sort of own the contact or is required to own the contact and leverage that as much as possible. I think this last question. Thank you again.
All right. That's a wrap, and we'll see you guys back here. I know it's a short lunch. I think it's a 12, it goes to 12:30, I believe. So you got about 30 minutes, and then we'll see folks back up here for the next round of presentations. Thank you. It is 1? It's a 12. Okay.